With the announcement of Watch Dogs 2, some are very excited, some are skeptical, and some are downright dismissive of the game. Everyone has their arguments, and justifiably so. Watch Dogs 2 is obviously a Ubisoft product, and Ubisoft over the last few years has become a relatively negative figure in the gaming world for many reasons. They milked the Assassin's Creed franchise to absolute exhaustion, doing lasting damage to the series with the technical mess that was Assassin's Creed Unity. They've released some really shoddy PC ports, one of them being the aforementioned Assassin's Creed Unity, another being the first Watch Dogs game. Ubisoft and PC gamers have always had a rocky relationship, and the inconsistent quality of their games hasn't helped. But one of the most obvious things that Ubisoft has become notorious for is the almost hilarious downgrades. The Division and the first Watch Dogs game are two games that saw massive visual downgrades from their initial reveal to the final product. Don't get me wrong, The Division and Watch Dogs were both pretty good looking games, but showing off these demos that aren't really indicative of the final product is not only lying, it's disrespectful to the gamer. Now, Ubisoft aren't the only guys that do it. CD Projekt Red is heralded by the gaming community, but even they did some downgrading with The Witcher 3. Maybe not to the Ubisoft extremes, but it was still there nonetheless. Some will point to gamers being graphics whores, that's not really what it's about. But even then, there's not anything wrong with appreciating good visuals. There is something wrong with misleading the consumer. That brings me to Watch Dogs 2. Ever since its announcement, there's been a lot of mixed opinions. The setting, story, and world look extremely promising, and those elements of the game have been largely praised by gamers. But there's always that lingering worry. The gameplay we've seen now looks exceptionally good from a technical standpoint, and whenever we see great gameplay from Ubisoft, we have to take it with a grain of salt. They carved themselves into this position where gamers don't really believe them. But let me play devil's advocate for just a second. There's a big difference when talking about the possibility of Watch Dogs 2 having a graphical downgrade versus the other games. With The Division and Watch Dogs, those two games were announced years before their release. Watch Dogs was revealed in 2012 and would see a release in 2014. The Division was revealed in 2013 and wouldn't see a release until 2016. So at that point, the games were still being built. They probably weren't worrying about making sure it runs well on console hardware at that point. With Watch Dogs 2, it's a whole different story. They've taken what I like to call the Bethesda approach, and what they did with Fallout 4 was genius. Everyone knew Fallout 4 was in development, just like everyone knew Watch Dogs 2 was in development. But instead of announcing the game a year or two before release and stringing gamers along, Bethesda and Ubisoft in this case revealed the game just 5 months before release. At this point, Watch Dogs 2 is essentially a finished product. Sure, there's gonna be a bit more polishing, but what we're seeing right now is probably representing the final game. Now, obviously, with the footage we're seeing, it is probably being ran on the highest end PCs imaginable, and the console version probably won't look as good, and those with more tame PCs won't be running the game like that. However, even with that, I don't think there will be this stark difference in quality from now until November. If there is, well then they have to be showing a build of the game that's older, because at this point, the game is finished, it won't be seeing any dramatic revisions. 5 months is no time at all in the game development world, especially when you consider the fact that a game has to go gold 5 to 8 weeks out. You're realistically looking at a timetable of late September, early October for Ubisoft to be completely finished with the game. And that's not enough time for the game to make any significant evolutions from what we're seeing now. I know when we talk about Ubisoft games, it is a lot of doom and gloom, but at the very least, Watch Dogs 2 deserves a fair shot. While the first game was by no means perfect, the foundation was there for it to become something great, much like the first Assassin's Creed game. That wasn't a great game, but Assassin's Creed 2 corrected the first game's issues and became something great. Maybe we'll see that with Watch Dogs 2 as well. I'm not saying that Ubisoft is the sane among gaming, far from it, but Watch Dogs 2 is a game with a lot of potential, and now this time around it will be exclusive to next generation platforms and PC. Maybe they'll have more to work with. We'll have to wait and see on November 15th. Let us know what you think. Are you excited for Watch Dogs 2? Are you skeptical with it being a Ubisoft game? I definitely don't blame you either way. Comment your thoughts down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.